Was hired by, it was a non-profit or not-for-profit. I was hired by them to do a new venture, endeavor. So I walked through, we formed a steering committee of people who wanted to grow this new portfolio, this new business stream. And we kind of worked on it. It's not in my strengths. They did the white paper and the executive summary and all those wonderful things that we're supposed to do. And inside, my gut was saying, okay, I'm writing with the wrong hand here. I know they're saying, yes, we want to do this, but I feel more like a dog on a rope when the other end is anchored to concrete and they're saying run, and I'm running flat out knowing what's going to happen. You know, and I shared with my confidants, my trusted colleagues, friends, and I described that, and they said, well, why don't you quit running? Why don't you just cut the rope and call it a day? And I said, I wish I could, but I'm not really good at quitting that kind of stuff. Even if I know in my spirit that they're not going to like the answer, I have to do what I was hired to do. And sure enough, 8 months in, I reached the end of the rope. And it was one of those classic partings. We're not going to terminate you. We're not going to say that you didn't do your job, but you're going to be allowed to leave. Here's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
All right, Team PYP, Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to another episode of the Play Your Position podcast, where we discuss many different elements related to answering the call to leadership, what it means to be a leader today, and how each of us can get out there on life's great playing field and play our best game. Today is no exception. I have got a fabulous guest coming to us today from Ottawa, Canada. His name is John Robertson. John, are you ready for kickoff?
Definitely. Absolutely.
Oh, phenomenal. So, team, here's some things I know about John. He is an inspired and driven consultant coach. He's driven by his values. Let's just get that clear. And that's what I love about my guests, is they show up with very, very clear principles and values. And he acts as a facilitator, a coach, and a guide for his clients as they test, discover, and expand what they can do. He uses concrete, verifiable processes to help them achieve demonstrable, solution-focused results. Remaining faithful to his passions and principles, John invests himself in his vocation without reservation. He provides spirit-filled, insightful guidance that his clients use to amplify their lives and their businesses. John truly provides leadership people can follow through storms. And I absolutely love that, John. And thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to share your stories about leadership with us here at PYP today.
Actually, I'm really honored to be on this conversation, this podcast with you. But as importantly, I love the analogy that you use, the play your position as well as football. And what a great visual of a successful leader in workplace. So honored to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Well, you are so welcome. So right out of the gate, John, let's set the context for our conversation today. Tell us your story about when you got the call to leadership. What was going on in your life? How did you answer the call? And any other details that you find relevant to share with us?
Okay, first of all, the best way to describe my call is what I would say is a hard of hearing response, because there've been a few points along the journey where I pretended to act like I didn't hear the call. and so it's kind of one of those, blah, 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 when the call came. And one of the things that I always challenged by. So there's been in high school, university, I was, if you will, a Pied Piper. But when somebody said, well, John, why don't you lead this? I would say, no, we're good. Just somebody else can. And then when we started out at a workplace, that I was at, it was a ways away from all of my known friends. There was a couple things that community people asked me to be involved with. And I said, well, like the old cats in the cradle, I'd love to if I could find the time, but the new job's a hassle. And eventually over time, what happened was the source of frustration or irritation of, come on, people, stop doing the same things and working harder at things that are dying. And let's change the game here. Let's find a way to stop pushing ropes. And let's get on the field and play something that you love. And that way, if we are playing something we love, even when we get a wallop in football, a Charlie horse, even when we get a wallop, we will find a way to get back in the game. So there was a TSN turning point, a ESPN in the US turning point, where a friend of ours was a chief of staff at a hospital, and he called me, a small town, and he said, I need you to come to the hospital. It was a horrific motor vehicle collision. And I need you to talk to the nurses because they're dealing with the fallout. And I said, PJ, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, well, John, it's 20 minutes from your house to the hospital. That gives you 19 to figure it out. Click.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if you've ever lived. Have you ever lived in a small town, Mary Lou?
I live in a small town now.
And you will know there's usually 2 to 3 up to 5 families that when they say, hey, I need your help, we either say yes and help them, or we're moving because we're done.
Yes.
And so that was my defining moment. That's when, okay, enough is enough. And we handled it. It went superbly well. And I thought, you know what? I want to grow in this field. And that's how I got a lot of real kickstart, if you will, into the crisis intervention, resilience, thriving field for leaders and workplaces.
Yeah, that's something I didn't mention in introducing you. And I want to add that because I think it's such an important part of your story that you are a certified grief counselor. You work, you're certified trauma treatment specialist. You got all access to and experience using numerous psychometric tools. Resilient leadership is something that you're really passionate about. Would
Absolutely.
you talk to us about, let's look at the last couple of years where trauma is everyone's middle name. I don't care who you are, whether you had COVID or not, you knew somebody who did. The fact that we were locked down, literally. So much has happened in the last 2 years. Could you, one of your talking points is reframing crisis as an opportunity. Can you talk to us today about how we can take these last 2 years and turn it into an opportunity?
Actually, and it's not mine, but some people are referring to it as the Great Resignation.
Yes.
And is it a great resignation, or when I teach crisis intervention and those significant moments, I call them the hot water teabag moments. Because if we want to find out what's important to a person or an organization, put them in hot water. Just like a tea bag, what's inside leaks out. Mm-hmm. And what's been going on over the last few years, and we are a long ways from being done this journey, but it's been hot water. And so, for example, if you and I lived in the same small town, if you and I worked at the same workplace, if you and I socialized, what's happened over the last few years is those values have been put in hot water. So if I can't get together and go to a football game, a hockey game, baseball game, or socialize at work or after work, how do I have a relationship with somebody when it's no longer about hanging out, just getting together, socializing, for lack of better words? And part of these few years have been either strengthening relationships of, okay, we're going to talk about more than the game that's in front of us, or we're going to talk about more than the project we just finished. And we're going to talk about things that are going on in our lives. And in an ironic way, for lack of better words, a successful workplace, a thriving workplace, is the kind of workplace that's not just performance productivity focused. It's the kind of place where people are able to say, hey, I saw that event that happened, or I saw that client, the way they treated you. How are you? How are you doing? And whether you call them values, whether you call that positional or personality, I call it nature, but developing a sense of how do we care for one another without being Friday night pizza and wings friends in a way that's not talking about cliche like the weather, facts or opinions, but we're talking about real feelings, transparency, and the one that I believe strongly in is called vulnerability. Transparency is sharing who I am. Vulnerability is sharing what I need.
Mm.
And what's happened over these last few years, cliches and opinions, they're filled with them. Those are the experts in the stand who know what the 24 in the field should be doing. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of experts in the stands. But what we need are some others, not just the 12 on one team, but we need some people on the sidelines who are not going to be shouting, run harder.
Mm-hmm.
We need those encouragers that say, hey, take a breath. We've got this. And that's part of what's going on. And I mean, I have I have a good number of people that I know that their relationships have been COVID casualties, not even over the deaths. It's been over the vaccination.
Yes. I know that I have people in my world as well that fit that description.
And so therefore, part of what's been going on over these last few years, whether you call it great resignation or refining process, is, okay, what's my real values here? What really matters to me? And as a leader, it's leadership that sets the high bar, sets the template. The leader must be the one who says, these values matter to me. In fact, you can evaluate me based on these values. You may not like me, but you can trust me, you can respect me, and I will show to you that I'm followable.
Yeah. Beautiful. What is something you wish people understood about trauma, John?
And as basic, simple as it sounds, it's two things. Crisis, the event is never the real crisis. First and foremost, and if you want me to do this in a lighthearted way, if you talk to a farmer who has beef cattle and he or she sees a dead animal, they will not be as traumatized as some other people who have no idea where hamburger comes from. The event is never the real crisis. And the second thing is...
Can I just ask, what is the real crisis?
It's the reactions.
The reactions. Okay. So the second one.
So the second one is, let's stop doing what I call sick care model, diagnosing, pigeonholing, judging, and treating people like they're ill, they're injured, or they need to be fixed. The second piece is normal person having a normal reaction to an abnormal event.
Nice. Yes.
And like, for example, some people on listening to this might have no idea what I mean by the term called black ice, but it's the kind of frost moisture that freezes on a highway at around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius. And it just works like ice on the highway. So a person could be traveling along completely fine on asphalt, hit black ice, and the car starts to spin, vehicle starts to spin out of control. Two people in the same vehicle can have very different reactions. One is deer in the headlights, holding on to the handle, just saying, what the heck? What am I going to do? Can't even focus. And the other one saying, well, that was kind of exhilarating. You want to stop for a coffee?
Want to go do that again?
Want to go do yeah. Let's do that again. Do that again.
50 miles faster.
Yeah. And what happens is we're overreacting to some events and we're not responding to others. because the event is never the real crisis. But the second part of it is, let's stop treating ill and let's just start looking at it as this is a normal person having a normal reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, it's an abnormal event. And,
yeah.
And one of the biggest things that I've learned is when people are cared for, they care for those people who cared.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something I do. I would never, that's called authenticity. Never, ever, ever care for another human being because you think they're going to care for you. That's just wrong in every way.
It is. Yeah.
But if I care for that person because it's a value statement, because it's the right thing to do, the byproduct of it is in the workplace, I get a more engaged employee. I have a more committed employee. So going back to football, when the defense is really putting the pressure on the offensive line, and the offensive line really cares about the well-being of the quarterback or the running backs, they will dig deeper is the expression that gets used.
Yes.
Whereas if I've never been cared for by the quarterback and I'm on the offensive line, I just might step to the side and say, oh, I thought they were running around the end. Sorry, I didn't see them. I didn't know they were going to come through like that.
See, that second one to me doesn't land well.
Okay, no.
Because it feels like an excuse. I guess I'm not negating what you said at all. It's just the way I heard what you just said. Like the first example, really showcases the value system and truly playing your position from a place of I do things in a certain way. It's not about doing certain things, right? Because in any role, there are certain things that you just do, right? If you're a parent, you make sure your kids are fed, for example. You make sure they have clean clothes, and those are things you do. But parenting is a value system where you show up and do things in a certain way. You do it from love. You do it from, I want the best for, the well-being of my child or children. In the workplace, which you're describing, certainly as a leader, same thing on the football field, the same thing. I mean, if you truly are showing up to do your work in a certain way, you are going to dig deep. You just are. Versus, oh, I guess I just didn't see them coming. And we've all watched games where we've seen both of those types of players.
100%. And I'm not pushing TV movies, but probably the best visual of this whole description is the Michael Orr story.
Oh, Blindside, yes.
Blindside, where Sandra Bullock, the mom, she walks out to him in practice and says, this is your family. She walks through all the different names in the family. And then she goes to the coach and says, he scored 90+% in whatever it was, family protection.
In protective instinct, yes.
Protective instincts. And one of the things that when we talk about playing your position, we have to understand how people are wired. We have to develop that and nurture that. Okay, let's leverage their strengths instead of putting them in positions where they can't or they don't know how.
Yes. And don't you think that's part of being a leader, is being able to help people either discover where they best fit, or recognizing, oh, you're not in the right position, I need to put you over here. Absolutely.
And that goes back to your comment about parenting or being a leader in the workplace requires love. And the best example that I can give you of this is talk to younger people, and I have no idea what age group that is, but ask them the difference between discipline and discipline and punishment. Many, many people today see them as the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
I can punish and not love, but I cannot love without discipline. It's not possible.
Oh, wow. Go into more depth about that. That's very interesting.
Punishment tends to be around what I would call accountability. The P culture. So protocols, policies, practices, performance, and of course, in the workplace, the beloved paperwork.
Right.
And And so therefore punishment is, well, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. Well, why didn't you do this? Well, you should have done that. Discipline requires that love, to which you just described, is helping me get in the right position to say, you know, John, I actually think you're far better at doing this than you are at doing whatever the other thing was.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, John, I want to correct a couple things that I've noticed, because it's going to handcuff you for success in that new way. Do you see what I'm describing, John? Can you hear what I'm trying to point out? Because, John, I want you to succeed. I want to develop a career for you based around your wiring, your gifting, your passion, your strengths. And that requires, well, love. That requires speaking the truth in love conversation.
Right.
And if you find an easy way to do that, please let me know. I would so love to know how to do that easily. It would be awesome.
You know, I think it comes from just doing it. It's like Emerson says, you know, we get the energy to do the thing by doing the thing. And
yeah, that's so true.
Those conversations that you do, that kind of a conversation that you just described is not easy. However, it can make the difference, a huge difference in not only the leader's life who's delivering, asking those questions, but in the life of the person, even if at the time the person resists hearing what's being said, which I'm sure you've seen and witnessed more than once, which leads me to my next question, which has to do with your own journey as a leader, John. If you could tell us about a time when you found yourself playing out a position, you metaphorically fumbled the ball through that game-losing interception, you were sacked. What happened and how did you recover?
Okay. So this is more, so you're only asking for one example?
I know. I know, of a gazillion.
Yeah, exactly. So the one that comes to mind is I was hired by, it was a nonprofit or not-for-profit. I was hired by them to do a new venture, endeavor. And so I walked through, we formed a steering committee of people who wanted to grow this new portfolio, this new business stream. And we kind of worked on it. It's not in my strengths. They did the white paper and the executive summary and all those wonderful things that we're supposed to do. And inside, my gut was saying, okay, I'm writing with the wrong hand here. I know they're saying, yes, we want to do this, but I feel more like a dog on a rope when the other end is anchored to concrete and they're saying run, and I'm running flat out knowing what's going to happen. And you know, and I shared with my confidants, my trusted colleagues, friends, and I described that, and they said, well, why don't you quit running? Why don't you just cut the rope and call it a day? And I said, I wish I could, but I'm not really good at quitting that kind of stuff. Even if I know in my spirit that they're not going to like the answer, I have to do what I was hired to do. And sure enough, 8 months in, I reached the end of the rope. And basically a month, and it was one of those classic partings. We're not going to terminate you. We're not going to say that you didn't do your job, but you're going to be allowed to leave.
Oh, here's the door. Oh.
Here's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out.
Oh, man.
And so a month before Christmas, with a wife and 3 kids, I was allowed to leave with basically no severance.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, you know what? I do know what that feeling is like of epic failures, because in the beginning, you know, 1 and 1 equaled 3. And it was, this would be so exciting to work on this. But I didn't listen to whatever you want to call it, sage counsel. I didn't listen to my spirit, my gut. I didn't listen to some of those other things that maybe would have prevented it. But to the second part of your question, what did I learn from it? Is listen to the spirit. Absolutely. Listen to the gut voice, but don't let go of a passion just because there is opposition. And they said no to the project. And there was a group of us that said, this is ridiculous. This is a great idea. Why don't we take it and run with it? So we did.
Oh, wow.
Now, that meant, generating an income, and there was no, like VC, there was no funding. It was just roll up your sleeves and
get to work.
Get to work.
Right.
And so I did jobs like $5-10 an hour just to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Because I was focused on the project.
Well, you believe so strongly in it. See, that's the difference. You're getting at the difference between when we talk about following your passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Following your passion means you have no other choice. You have to do it. And Stephen Pressfield writes about that in his book, Do the Work, which isn't as popular as The War of Art. But the principle is the same, is that it's not even like people can look at you and tell you, like you heard, well, this will never work, or you're crazy, John, or, why are you doing that? And it's like, you just look at them and go, I don't have any other choice. I have to do this. And that's where the magic happens every time.
Every single time. And the other thing that has to be tied to that passion is our values.
Yes.
Because when I'm passionate, in the US, the Marines have their code of Semper Fi, which comes from Semper Fidelis. Semper means always. Fidelis means faithful, fidelity. It means faithfulness and loyalty.
Right.
When I teach it, I call it Passio Fidelis. Passion, passio, and fidelity, faithfulness, loyalty. So the premise of the book that I wrote is built around that Passio Fidelis. Because when I am clear on what my values are, and I can't describe it accurately, but it's that sweet spot of my passion, then even when the whole stands are chirping at me to say, it's not going to work, it's okay, thank you for your opinion, but I got to get back on the field and get going.
Mm-hmm.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
What you're getting, are you familiar with the term ikigai, the Japanese term ikigai?
No, I'm not, but
IKIGAI. And for listeners who aren't familiar with it, if you look it up, you can Google it. And there's this beautiful graphic that shows 4 circles, like in a Venn diagram. And at the center is what you're getting at here. And it's what the world needs, what you love to do, what people are willing to pay for. And I always forget the 4th one, but there's these 4 elements that when you have that, you were just describing, that's ikigai. That's when you're in the zone, to use the American phrase, but it's more than that. And it is being able to ignore the naysayers. It's being willing to just stand up because of your value system, which you've mentioned several times today. And I love that, because if you aren't clear on why you're doing what you're doing, what are you doing?
I want to clarify, and we need to clarify, because values are not ethics. And this is where people get caught. Ethics are, did I do the right thing based on some written or unwritten code or policy or procedure? Ethics are the mirror test. What kind of person do I see in the mirror? Values are those motivational preferences. They are the motivation. So, for example, the question why. Punishment says, why did you do that? Or why did you not do that? Values will not ask that question. Values will only ask the why question looking forward. Why is that important for you? Why does that matter for you? Because the why going forward is a motivational, and that a question premise, and that requires values. And, you mentioned family and numerous other ways. Our values are those things that, well, yeah, you know what? This probably isn't going to be a high profit margin, but it's the right thing for me to be doing. So man up, John, and go do it. And we sleep well at night. We are at peace. We have, the old term is called serenity, because we are living our position and motivated to play it and play it with excellence. We're not just playing it. And, you mentioned a key die. I wrote it down, but it's Jim Collins in Good to Great calls it the hedgehog. Stephen Covey calls it sharpening the saw. And as Solomon wrote in 975 BCE, there's nothing new under the sun. The key is, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And are we implementing it versus taking another course? And part of what I've enjoyed about some of your podcasts have been welcoming those opportunities. It's that, whether you call it slaying the giant or reframing it, but also that psychology of voice, I think was one, or something like that I listened to.
Yeah, the psychology of voice with Tracy Goodwin. Yeah. And
most people are, and I think the other thing that might have happened over these last 2 years is we become far more conscious about nonverbals.
Oh.
The whole communication has become far more, I don't even know what the right word here is, but I used to let people off when they said things that weren't really well said. But now, since we don't have the water cooler coffee pot conversation, all I have is the email or text that said what it said.
Yeah, the nuances are filtered out of that kind of communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so therefore, the best way that I can encourage a leader, and it's a question that anybody who's ever heard me speak, they will hear me say it over and over. It boils down to, how do you want, as the leader, how do you want people to describe you non-physically?
Wow, that is a great question.
And the second question, there's 3 questions that all flow, that are all part and parcel of that. First one is that, how do I want people to describe me non-physically? The second one is the measurement. How do people describe me non-physically? And then the third one is, what do I want to do about it?
Have you had people answer? I mean, what have you heard back? Like, how do you want people to describe you non-physically, John? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I wasn't saying it well.
Oh, that's fine. And I want people to describe me kind of like that intro. I want people to be able to describe me, even when John was a royal pain in the neck or a stone in the shoe. Man, oh man, that guy would be there. And if I felt like my boat was sinking, he would be in my boat saying, "This is exciting. Now paddle."
Now paddle. Come on.
Come on. Or row, depending on the type of boat you have. And I want to be the kind of person that can be trusted. I want to be the kind of person that is seen to have a focus and vision and leading so that others can follow, so that I am trustable, that I am an encourager, that I am willing to be of service. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you know what? Sometimes that means I'm not everybody's friend. That there's an old fable, I can't remember who it's by, Hans Christian Andersen maybe, but he talks about the emperor's new clothes.
Right.
I want to be the little boy.
Calling it out.
And it's not a criticism, but like going back to football, if the wide receiver is wide open on every play and nobody says, "Hey, quarterback, look at the wide receiver. They're wide open every single time." If nobody says that, how does the team succeed?
They don't.
And so therefore, who are those people that leaders put in your life? They are not the ones that will volunteer. The people who tend to volunteer to be in our lives are not always the ones who are going to lovingly discipline us.
No, I believe wholeheartedly that when people show up in our lives, the first question I ask myself is, what do I need to learn here? That is, and that I didn't always do that, but I've taught myself that, and then I ask myself, in what ways is this person going to help me grow? And I don't say that from a selfish point of view. I say it from a servant leadership point of view. What am I going to get in terms of wisdom? And how is this person going to challenge me to be better? And I'll tell you, it is powerful. It is emotional. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. It is transformative. Absolutely transformative.
One of the big defining moments, and it was as a teenager. So the minister at the church we were at, he moved to a new church. And I went in to visit. In those days, we called people Mr. and Mrs. And I went in to visit Mr. Newton. And he was in the hospital on a morphine drip because of bone back cancer, which is apparently one of the most painful cancers there is.
Oh, yeah.
And he's lying in bed, and he is probably one of the most genteel spirits you will ever meet or would have ever met. And I remember as a teenager standing at the side of his bed, and he said, "John, please remember that in a world of presence, people need presence." Mm. And I looked at him as a teenager, and I'm thinking, okay, you're taking a little too many meds. and he obviously saw the look, and he said, "John, in a world of presents, people need prenen. Sorry, I'm not spelling it very well, but presence, presence."
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And I'm part of that poor spelling is because I'm thinking about standing. And that was when I was a teenager. Like that was 1 or 2 days ago. And I've never, ever forgotten that counsel that he provided to me, that 99% of the time people do not need what comes after my name, the check marks. They need me to be with them.
Yeah.
And if I don't know who I am, if I don't know the position I am called and gifted to play, if I don't know my wiring, I can't be with anybody else in a way they need.
Yes. Can you say that statement one more time, please?
If I don't know how I'm wired and I don't know the position I'm called, gifted to play, then I will not be able to be there for them in the way that they need.
Mm-hmm. And then can you say the one about presence again?
Yes. In a world of presence, people need presence. In a world of presents, people need presence.
Beautiful. Thank you. I just absolutely love that sentiment and that message. It's beautiful. And what a gift. What a gift that he gave you. And, I think it's interesting. You're very honest about when the age that you were as teenagers, it's like you recognized that this was powerful, but you didn't have any real worldview understanding. Yet it stayed with you. And it was one of those moments.
And I have been honored to be in those moments of the worst time of a person's life. Yeah. It could be job loss. It could be somebody killed on the way to work. It could be the death of a child. It could be shutting a business down, like closing it. And Mr. Newton's words, like, John, they don't need all your certifications, titles, and experience. They need you to be with them.
Yes. I'm trying to think of a smooth transition from that into having the game-winning touchdown, and because it's in its own way, that story you just told is a touchdown story.
Yes, but I can take that to the next level. I was working with, actually I still am, but I was working with a senior leader, and he was telling me about the problem of leadership is leaders get shot at from both sides.
Yes, with both barrels blazing.
Yes. And so he was in that moment of leadership. He was getting shot at from the front, but also shot at from the back. And so he started to do what most of us do, started to apply for other jobs. And he reached out to me, and I hadn't spoken to him for probably 6 months. And I said, I'll just call him Tom, but I just said, so Tom, what's up? Well, I just hadn't spoken to you in a while. And Tom, you and I don't play these games. What's up? And he started to laugh and he said, and that's why I'm calling you.
He knew.
And I said, what's up? And he said, well, I've noticed that I'm getting shot at. It wasn't his words, but he said, I feel like I'm getting drawn and quartered. And I've started to apply for these other jobs and moving my family. And I said, oh, okay, well, that sounds interesting. Why are you applying for those jobs? And Mary Lou, hopefully you'll hear the values question in that. Is why does that matter to you, Tom? Why do you want to move?
Yes.
And I heard crickets on the phone. And I said, hello, thinking I dropped the call. And no, I'm still here. And I'm just really annoyed right now, John, that you've asked me that question, because I was thinking maybe you would celebrate that I want to take the next level in my career, because these jobs would all be a promotion. And I said, I'm not worried about whether it's a promotion or demotion, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to worship the title you had. So why are you applying? Anyways, long story short, we reached a point in the conversation and he said, you know what, John? I am dishonoring my gifting. And this is over numerous sessions, but I'm dishonoring my gifting. I am not honoring my values, and I am not doing the very thing that I want to leave as my legacy in training and equipping people. I want to be that trainer that people can trust and have grown in their career and in their jobs. And I realize I'm actually running from the very thing that I want to be doing.
Wow. That's a big aha moment for him.
And it all started with me being present with him.
Sure.
Not, okay, well, do you want to formalize the conversation and have a coaching, all the things?
No. Yeah. All those. No. It was just like, what's up, dude? What's up?
Yeah, exactly.
This is not just a casual, hey, let's shoot the breeze. There's something going on here. Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned through the last 2.5 years, as well as my own family's journey from our storms, is I'm becoming less and less tolerant talking about the weather.
Yeah.
I want to talk about things that matter and the things that will matter. I want to have those relationships that you or whomever can talk with me about things that really matter for you. Not, did you see that XYZ movie, show, news, whatever it was.
Right. No, I hear exactly what you're saying. It's the meat of the conversation. It's going to the heart. Yeah. I think I don't know if it was Stephen Covey or it might be John Maxwell talks about the different levels of communication. There's 5 different levels. And the first one is what you just described, the weather, that the latest accident that happened on the highway that made the nightly news. It's that kind of stuff that I think Thoreau described it as, do we really need to be paying attention to every gnat and mosquito wing? Who cares if another barn is burning? Come on. It's what we really want to, get to is what matters to you. Am I being a presence? Am I giving you a present of presence?
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
I've noticed in my experience when I am giving the present of presence and when I'm not, and the way that the people I'm with, you can tell the way that they respond. And it's the same way. Like if I'm showing up to somebody and I really need their presence with me, if I'm not getting it from them, again, I'm mature enough now to recognize they're just not in the space they can do it. And that's okay. So I don't take it personally. I just recognize maybe there's somebody else that I can find that presence with.
And just as a springboard from that. That's one of the things that's happened with so many virtual meetings.
Ah.
Because 99% of us can tell when somebody's actually not listening.
Oh, yeah.
Even if sometimes they just never even turn their cameras on. Well,
Right.
How can you be listening if you're never willing to look at me or let me look at you?
Mm-hmm.
And just confession time, one of the epic moments in my life, failure, but one of the epic moments in my life was, we have 3 children. My wife says she has 4, but together we have 3. Our middle child, he was talking with me, and Chris, and you got to picture the scene, okay? He's a young child, so I'm going to say 4 or 5. I don't remember exactly. And he came up to me, put both hands on each side of my face. So literally on both cheeks, grabbed both sides of my face, and he turned my head and he said, "Dad, listen to me with your eyes."
Oh, my. Oh, man.
And
Wow.
it was like, yeah, okay, just slap me, Chris. It'll hurt less.
Oh, wow. Oh, that. Whew. And I bet you never didn't do that again.
No, that was not one of my shining moments, but it was a lesson not soon forgotten, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that as we, get to the end here of what has been a phenomenal conversation, John. And I'm sure there are people who would like to know more about you. So where do you hang out online?
So the website is FORTLOG. Fort is a safe place, a frontier. In this example, it's the end zone. A fort is a safe place where you're trying to go. And a log is a journal to sail the seas, because there's no point going there alone. So fortlog.co, not .com. .co, because I collaborate, colleague, coach. I'm co. And then the simplest way is fortlog.co/play your position, one word.
Okay. So team, those links will be on John's show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And I encourage you to learn more about him. He's also on LinkedIn. So if you're a LinkedIn user like I am, reach out to him. I'll put a link so you can find his profile easily. And, as we wrap things up, John, my final question has to do with who your team is. But before we get to that, is there one big tip you'd like to leave listeners with before you share with us who you like to watch on either Saturday and or Sunday?
One big tip is please take the time to identify the players you want on your field. And Mary Lou, I don't know if it's a true story or not. It doesn't matter. But most people don't know where the huddle comes from. And the story goes that there was a team that the quarterback would get up to the line, and whether it be an auditory problem or he couldn't speak, they started to read the signs at the line. So the defense knew what the play was going to be. So they called a huddle, and in the huddle, the play was called so that when they went up to the line, nobody had to say anything. And so one of the things that I'm really going to encourage people, listeners, is please pick people to put in your huddle.
That you want there.
Because they're the ones that are going to help you run the play and put the ball in the end zone.
Fantastic. So who is your team?
I'm a real problem with this because I've done so many different teams that I'm actually more the encourager. So when somebody says, well, whoever, Seahawks are an underdog, okay, I'll cheer for them. Well, this year it was the Patriots because basically it was a bunch of kids and what's his name? I'm having a brain cramp.
Tom Brady?
Tom Brady was gone and everybody expected them to wash out. And maybe not.
No, Tom Brady played this past year. He just retired and then came back. He's like, I'm done. Now I'm coming back. So.
But on a different team. I think it was.
He was with the Patriots and then he went to Tampa Bay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so Patriots when Brady was gone.
Yes.
Because I don't know what it is in their coach, Tom, but man, he can take kids who sometimes not even sure they know what game they're playing. And man, he develops them as, it's fascinating to watch.
Yeah. He's a master coach, Bill Belichick. And I like that. Yeah, Bill Belichick. I like that you go for the underdog. My mom and I do that a lot, especially here in March Madness, which is an American thing with college basketball. I wasn't implying you didn't know. It's just for listeners who aren't familiar with March Madness.
Our son-in-law is has been a very big basketball player. So every time he's got the TV remote.
That's where it is.
That's where it is.
Yeah. So I like that. I like that a lot, John. And I've really liked our conversation today. You didn't leave anything on the field, and that I appreciate tremendously. And I wish you all the best as you continue on your journey as a servant leader, as somebody who is truly committed to helping others become the best versions of themselves.
It's been my honor, and I wish you the very best. And I am truly grateful for what you are providing people through a venue like Play Your Position podcast. So blessings to you and your loved ones, and especially to your leadership, encouraging others.
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.